Hi everyone, I'm Cadet Johanna Western, your Professional Development Training Officer.
And I am Cadet Emily Rowley, and I'm the Bravo Flight Commander this semester. And this is Aircast. So this semester we're going to have 2 hosts. So get excited for double the fun.
Woo!
Today we're going to be discussing field training with Cadet Sebastian Lemieux. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, I'm Cadet Lemieux. Thank you for having me.
What's your job this semester?
So this semester I am the facilities officer, so I'm in charge of any projects to improve the detachment, and then I'm also in charge of the SUPOs, who are in charge of all the uniforms for the detachment.
All right, cool. So we'll get started with our first question.
Alright, for you guys, what were you guys most nervous about before going to FT?
So before I went, which is completely not what was the most pertinent thing when I got there, was I was worried about memorizing everyone's names, because I'm just really bad at memorizing names, and I know missing greetings was horrible, but by the time I got down there, it only took a few hours of your CTAs being around you that you were able to memorize them very quickly, as well as your FTOs. I did forget a couple FTO names while I was down there, but they corrected me pretty quickly and I didn't forget them. So that was what I was nervous before going, but that definitely wasn't what I should have been nervous about.
My first day, I was the flight commander and I had to report into the dining facility, and I was like calling the CTA that I was reporting into by my base CTA's name, and surprisingly they didn't yell at me. It like took me a while to figure out what I was doing wrong because they didn't like say anything. But something that I was really nervous about going, I guess, was just making sure I was prepared enough. Like, I was trying to prepare as much as I could, but there was just like worries, like, are all of my clothes folded correctly? Like, am I gonna get ripped for having like my clothes not perfect when I get there? Or like, do I know everything in the FTM that I need to know and stuff like that? But I mean, getting there, I think it was just the unknown that made it like so like worrisome, like that I didn't know if those things were going to be important. And then like getting there, it's like if those things did end up being important, then you just like focus some more time on it, and it ended up not really being a big issue.
Mine definitely, for some weird reason, because there was like a chat before, like for our show, and they're like, yeah, if they can get a hand into your duffel bag, like you get a Form 17 right away. So like initially that was my first thing I was worried about. And then the other thing was just knowing that, like, if your flight was going to be good, if they were going to be, like, you know, able to talk with them, because, you know, you don't know how prepared some of these people come into. So that also made me worried. So you didn't want to, like, step on toes, but still want to show that you're being a leader and follower and all that fun stuff.
I remember being a little bit worried about, you know, how my flight mates were going to show up prepared and, like, what I was going to have to do for them. But honestly, that kind of just made you like a stronger leader and follower by helping them, doing the best you can to make sure your team succeeds, because that was really what it was all about, was having like a team mentality. It wasn't really about you succeeding yourself.
Yeah, I still found that people struggled with that team mentality, like even to the very end. That, like,
and that was probably like my pet peeves. Like when we did peer rankings, the people who were all about like showing that they were the best cadet, I ranked last.
Oh, you guys had peer rankings?
Yeah,
I did a couple times.
I did peer rankings for I think from TD2 on. Every single day we did peer rankings for everyone in our bay.
We just did it for our bay and for our flight.
I did
it for the bay and for the flight. But for that, I was mostly just judging off. My judgments really changed, but it was who I kind of saw like performing and helping out people. Like, I would need help folding my bed, and then other people came and they didn't really know how to roll socks, so they would look just like a bundle of socks. And I'd help them with that. But by the end of it would change, because people who are a little more, I guess you could say, introverted, which I would say I am a little bit myself when it comes to certain things. Like, it takes me a while to kind of acclimatize to a new environment. So I found it hard to actually like judge people. But other people in my flight were definitely that way too. It took them a while to kind of come out of their shells and not that they couldn't perform, but just that their leadership abilities weren't at their peak because they had, adjusted to the FT environment. And by TD 10, I was like, oh, they were number 19 in my bay, and now they're number 2. So
Right.
that was something.
Right.
It's so weird. I never did them, so the fact that y'all did it, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I just did it twice, so once with our bay. Once with our
we
bay.
never did. The only thing we ever.
Did them every night.
That's rough.
That's so crazy.
We did a journal every night.
We did the journal, but we didn't have peer rank. We had a random question of the day, what inspires you?
Right.
It was
Yeah.
random
We did
questions.
too. We just had to do. We're getting really off topic here, but we just had to do a random question. Some of them were really funny. We had to write our FTO came in one night, was just trying to keep the topic a secret from our CTA, and he told us to write what fictional character we think our CTA is.
I love it.
It was funny, and then we just had to write red, green, or yellow for
The normal.
how you are, mental status. What do you wish you knew before going to FT?
The weather.
Oh god.
It was just we expected it to be hot, but I don't think I ever expected it to be to the point you just walk outside for 2 minutes and you're just dripping right off the
Oh,
That's
bat.
pretty humid.
That was bad.
They're oh, it's gonna be really hot and humid, but you're you're oh, I've dealt with hot and humid, but then
It was bad.
you get down there, it's a brick wall that hits your face the moment you do it.
Yeah. So I wish before I went to FT, I wish that I knew about all the deadisms we had and what actually was a deadism, because there's things like the guidon being at facing forward is at war and facing flat isn't. I knew that
Right.
that wasn't a true thing, but there are little things in the way we march and the way that not only marching, but then other say UOD 9 lines. There are certain little things that the variance between all of us made it to where we all could have completed tasks by ourselves. We could have marched fine by ourselves. We could have led exercises by ourselves. But the little differences it made, so that way when we were trying to see what we expected from each other when calling commands or leading a mission scenario, those little differences made our communication just fall apart a couple times. So I wish I knew all of those differences from the other detachments, which I guess you can't really know, right? That's not something I could know before going, but that was one of the biggest information struggles I had, because warrior knowledge and things like that I don't think was an issue. As far as I think I was well prepared going to know what I needed to have memorized and things like that.
Right. I think I had a pretty big issue with some deadisms right off the bat, because I was flight commander on the first day, and I needed to set a time hack, and I think I said, cadet so and so, set a time hack for this many minutes, move. And then she would try to she would be moving crazy, moving out of the flight, and then the FTOs would be what are you doing? So nobody understood my verbiage for setting a time hat. Yeah, literally that was
so
what she was
weird.
thinking. So after that we kind of had a quick little meeting in our bay about how we should say it, and everybody had their own ideas and was throwing. I think that was probably our first fight.
See, we never really did time hacks or anything like that, so the things that
That's
ended
nice.
up getting us for communication, the deadisms, was there's always those few girls in my bay that thought they were 100% right, and they were just not willing to compromise or work with any of us, while all of us were well, we're kind of going to modify and put each of our parts together and make it a new thing. So this way we're going to do it's kind of it's all new to us, and it makes everybody have their voice heard. And then there's that one or two girls that are no, that's wrong. I'm going to do it this way when I become flight commander. And I'm
Right.
Yeah.
you're not helping your team out here.
No.
Yeah, there's definitely a way to be right, but then there
It's
is
not
no
necessarily about being right.
Yes, it's not about being right. It's about all
Teamwork.
doing it the same. That's what it is.
Right.
It's not. This is the correct way to do it. I'm gonna not listen to you. It's we should all be standardized and be on the same page.
It's basically can you come up with a plan together, and can everybody execute that plan together?
At the end of the day, your verbiage, is the world gonna end if you call a time hack wrong? No, but if you don't all do it the same and expect the same things, that's what matters.
It matters about
It's going
that
to
teamwork.
confuse people.
That teamwork, man.
Something that I wish I knew before going to FT is how I was like gonna feel, I guess, physically and mentally, because I was really worried about just having nerves the whole time. I was like worried that I was gonna be so stressed out the whole time, like freaking out, just like uncomfortable, out of my element, and I wasn't, and that kind of blinded me to maybe the things I should have been focusing on or thinking about, which is like how difficult it was gonna be physically, like being up at 4 a.m. and then trying to make yourself go to bed at 8 p.m. so you can get 8 hours of sleep. And, or what was it? I think it was 8 p.m.
It's supposed to be 8 hours.
People with normal sleep schedules don't struggle as much with that. But I don't know, my sleep schedule
I don't think I went to bed at 8, maybe even before 10 in like a couple years.
See,
I usually go to bed at like 1:30.
I found it very easy to adjust that sleep schedule.
I wish though, so like just Bay, the way our Bay was ran, like waking up was always really stressful and caused a lot of our girls in our Bay anxiety. So I'd wake up.
It caused me a lot of anxiety the first couple of days.
Yeah, no, mine was the whole week or however long we were there. I'd wake up almost every hour after midnight. So I'd wake up at midnight, 1, 2, 3, 3:30, and I'd wait from 3:30 to 4, and then that's when they would come in.
Jeez, yeah, I would wake up like at least twice to go to the bathroom every single night because I had to pee so much.
Yeah.
That's good.
But that's just because we had to drink so much water because it was so hot.
You did.
Yeah. So.
But honestly, it was just really difficult, like going throughout the day. Like it was just so surprising when it was only at 7 o'clock.
But that
and you'd already done so much that day. And it's just like, how are we going to get through the rest of the day? I think that was the most difficult thing. Like, just, it was a sort of a mental mountain as well as a physical mountain. I think, like, just being tired made the long days even more difficult.
It's hard. It's all those, and then you start missing the little things.
So I wish I knew that, and then I also wish I knew that it wasn't going to be as nerve-wracking as I thought it'd be.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think it's like once you got used to it, you're like, you kind of, it's like the term embrace the suck. Like, but you still were fine once you got into it a bit.
Yep,
but
definitely.
So kind of going off of that, what did you guys think was the most difficult part of FT?
I would say kind of getting to the performing part with your team, because you have different team phases, right? And it's really hard to do in any field training environment unless we made it a couple months, but you have like the storming or the norming, storming, and then performing phases. And I don't think our teams, especially because of the bay split, right? So we had our bay for those 7 days, and then after TD8 we went to our flights. You had to norm, storm, perform with a different team. Getting to that part where I knew the strengths, and not strengths and weaknesses, but the abilities overall of my team. But I think the hardest part, or most difficult part of FT would definitely be getting to a point with my team where I can give directive and work with them, especially in the mission scenarios where I had to kind of figure out how to work with certain individuals differently, so that way not only would we be successful as a team, but I didn't leave anyone out. Because there were times when I would be doing the LRC, and from then outside, one of the FTOs gave a comment like, you were only taking suggestions from one person. And the team didn't perceive that, but from an outside perspective, that's what it looked like. Yeah. So kind of trying to get to know everyone on my team and work as a whole unit, and not just say, these 3 people are really good at doing this right now, we need to get this done, I'm going to use your 3 strength and use these other people for different positions. Eventually we would kind of get to a point where I could actually get everyone involved, and kind of like in our regular flights, like by the end of I'd say you really like the spring semester, the flights are like very tight, cohesive units. But right now, at the beginning of the semester, the flights don't even know each other. So that's kind of like a mirror.
I think for at least my flight, like our bay was super close. But when we got to our flights, I think for us, just even the integration, because the guys' bay that we integrated with and the guys in general were all really, really close. And so when we had 4 girls join their flight, it was it was really hard to like try to like talk with them and just like
your
get
flight
a job.
Mates not all from different bays?
Most of them were from the same bay.
Wow.
So I think there was like 5 from one bay, then there was like kind of 1 or 2 sprinkled in there. Mm-hmm. But like overall, they were really tight and close, just the guys in general. So like being integrated in was really hard.
Did you have anyone from your bay?
Yeah, I had 3 other girls.
Oh wow! I had 1.
We had 3.
Yeah, so. That's pretty different. I had from our flight, we had I think 2 guys who were in the same bay and 2 girls who were in the same bay. Everyone else was from a different bay, so we all had to reorganize in that team. So maybe that's why my experience would be a little different. But I think yours might even, if I was in that, I might even find that more difficult because there's this other team that's almost on that like performing stage, and then you have to incorporate yourself into that, and they'll just do things without.
Well, they ended up not giving a lot of the girls positions. Like they never gave us like advice. They didn't give us guide-on. They wouldn't give us element leaders. They put us like not at jobs that they didn't want to.
I have that issue in my flight.
Like we told them in our we're like, hey, like we know this stuff and we can help you, and they just.
But they've already been together.
Yeah, they've been together. They just were closer. They have the inside jokes.
Oh yeah,
all
that you don't think that matters, but that actually matters a lot. All the little idiosyncrasies you get to know with your bae, like that's how you get through the suck together.
Yeah, the jokes, but
yeah. I think something that I found difficult was like keeping my morale up, and then like also trying to like keep morale up of everyone else.
Yeah.
So I definitely like noticed at the beginning, the first couple of days, I was just really not excited about my time there so far. But then like once I started really like finding a family with the girls in my bay and then the people in my flight, I definitely started to really, really enjoy my time there. And by the end, I honestly didn't want to leave. But another thing that I found difficult kind of going off of that is like when I'm not in like the best mood and not having like a great attitude and like letting other people get into the cracks in my armor and like be annoyed by them, and then I'm not treating them very well, like that's not good for your team. And I definitely found myself doing that, especially at the beginning and sometimes at the end too when I got to be really tired.
Yeah, you get drained socially with all those people.
Especially like
I completely agree there. Yeah. I'm like a huge introvert, and then we had to be in a room with 20
you
people.
You have no private space except the toilet.
So, you don't even get private space for that because you have to go to the bathroom with a buddy.
Exactly. See, as an extrovert, like I was fine socially, like because that's just extroverts like thrive off of that. But what ended up happening with me is certain people would just start to kind of tick me off just by their demeanor and everything. So
and like, it's not like
it's nothing
against them as a person at all. It's just like you're tired and you have no space from them or anybody else.
Yeah, like they were really like everybody I met was super sweet and stuff. It was just like you said, we were just tired and we're like, all right, like.
I think that's one of the main differences between like basic training and field training is the fact that field training, you have this evaluation and leadership aspect, and everyone needs to kind of like show the best of themselves. At basic, you're all just getting taught the same thing. So when you have that suck and you have that, like, oh, this person's kind of ticking me off, you can kind of just learn alongside them, but not have to, integrate yourself with what they're doing as much.
Probably.
And then when you're a leader, exactly, you have to incorporate that person in everything you're doing. You have to interact and be a lot more considerate of others, I think, when you're at like a leadership evaluation environment like we're in. So.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, I was gonna say what was difficult. I think also was the food.
Oh,
we got hyped up for the Maxwell dining facilities, and then we come to not moldy sandwiches and the breakfast sandwiches, and sometimes meatloaf, which was good, but that like things like you look back like so you were talking about morale and like laundry. Dining and sleeping are like one of the 3 big things you can get for people who have good morale, and 2 of those things weren't really well catered at Camp Shelby: the dining and then the laundry. So those 2 things were always little chips away at morale.
So sometimes. For us, if y'all didn't know, so they would ship the laundry to Maxwell.
Yep.
And they lost so much laundry, and they eventually just canceled that.
I think you lost some, right, Cadet Rally?
I lost some laundry,
Yeah, so...
I lost a whole bag.
Oh my gosh. I lost 2 OCPs at one point. I was like...
But you got it back,
I got it back, luckily.
That's
I was
good.
thankful.
Yeah, I never got my laundry back.
And we did a standby inspection, and she's like, Cadet Western, where's your OCPs? And I'm like, ma'am, they got lost in the wash. And she's like, all right. I'm like,
Can't do anything about that.
Yeah, she tried.
With the food, I guess we should bring it up here because it's in the difficult part about tea. I am vegan, for those of you who don't know, and it was really difficult for me. Like, there were, like, some days when they had a veggie patty for dinner, and so that's what I ate every single night.
Oh my gosh, that's
so...
yeah.
That's like the eggs every morning. You're just like tired
well,
of it by
I
the
couldn't
end.
even eat those. So I would, in the morning, I would eat hash browns and grits.
The grits, man.
And then, like, and I only had an option between, like, 2 or 3 MREs. So that's what I would have to eat, like, every single lunch. And also, when they, like, didn't have a veggie patty, or, like, they were having the breakfast sandwich, which had, like, meat and cheese on it, they would literally just give me 4 pieces of bread and peanut butter.
Wow.
And then I would just, like, grab some jelly and make myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And we literally only have 10 minutes to eat. So I would have to make my food and eat it. And I remember, like, some days I would, like, finish making my peanut butter and jelly. Like, I would, like, have just eaten, like, or like a banana too or something. So it didn't take me this long to make it, but it would be like I have 2 minutes left after I finished making it, and I'd be like, oh shoot, I'm not sure if I'll be able to eat it. And then I was able to eat it. Like,
the only thing that matters.
It was so bad. Like, I'm a pretty slow eater. Like, that was really difficult, having to train yourself to eat fast.
Yeah, but without choking.
Oh, I inhaled food. Like, I'm talking
we had a couple kids get the Heimlich.
Mm-hmm. We never had the Heimlich, but, you know, I inhaled food. Like, you know, people, you know, made sandwiches.
Yeah, I made some
like,
weird
whatever.
sandwiches.
But it was definitely interesting.
So, moving on, what was your favorite part about FT?
The people. Hands down, the people.
I agree.
So, you know, nothing brings you closer than embracing the suck together. So, like, I still talk to, like, a lot of them still. And, like, we did this group FaceTime, like, a couple weeks ago, just, like, how's everybody doing?
Oh,
and,
that's
like,
awesome.
One of our girls, she was a JAG, so she, like, was supposed to commission, and then stuff went crazy, and they no longer let her commission at FT. So our bae did a little commissioning ceremony. We got a little flag, and we did it behind her.
Oh.
So that was really fun, because it was like, you know, like, that was a memory she's not going to forget and stuff, so.
So she commissioned when she got back?
Yeah, she passed her bar and everything, so she's like a captain. She's going, going places, man.
That's cool. Yeah, I agree. I think the people were my favorite part. Our Bay FTO, Major Wilkerson Beanick, it was fun to memorize that name as well. But Major Wilkerson Beanick called our Bay the Pirates because the Pittsburgh Pirates have the worst baseball record in the history of baseball. So he said that as far as performance, we were like the Pittsburgh Pirates. Well, we embraced that name and we became the Pirates, and we had pirate chants. We had we sang Drunken Sailor. We sang a bunch of stuff. We got to the point where we actually got a pirate flag from Major Wilkerson Beanick and hung it, and we took it down at one point to sign it all for him, and he walked in. It's like a quick story, I guess. He walked in, and the flag was gone. Where do you think the flag is if you're an FTO and it's gone? Well, it's probably on a flagpole somewhere on Camp Shelby. It wasn't. We had headed to sign it, but he began to, like, quote-unquote, interrogate us. This was around TD 12 or 13, so Bay FTOs, it wasn't as strict at that point. Your flight FTOs were there. Mm-hmm. But we had all, without coordination, simultaneously started reciting the articles of the Code of Conduct to not give away the location of the flag. So little things like that, where we just, for some reason, had this synchronicity that we knew how to function as pirates, and we completely embraced it. That was by far my favorite part. And our Bay Pirates, anytime we see something pirate-related, we'll message it to each other. Be like, oh, I found a pirate on a ship. There's a pirate flag on this car. And I feel that I'll always be a pirate, like a Bay 332 pirate, because of the experience I had there.
Yeah, so this was on TD 16, which was graduation day. I actually wrote in my journal, the best part about being here was getting to know the people and these people becoming a part of me.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you guys there. It was just so awesome to go through the experience with everyone that I met there, and I'm just never gonna forget. Even like the FTOs and the CTAs, they've all taught me something in some way. And even the FTOs and CTAs I didn't like, they all taught me something. They maybe even taught me more.
I think they taught more because they're like, you know what you don't want to be when you're an officer. Like, you know how you're like, oh, well, now I know how not to act. I know how I want to be. So I definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So just learning about myself and learning about like how important it is to be a follower and, you know, how to be a good leader under stress and how to be a good wingman. It was just an invaluable experience I couldn't trade for anything else.
What do you think some things you excelled at FT were?
Surprisingly, I had good bearing.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And that was what I was most worried about, and I think that's probably why I did so well at it. But I was, like I've said, I was the fight commander on the first day, so it's like it sounds like, oh, you might be like catching a break because it's the first day, but no, honestly, it's the hardest day to be fight commander.
That's the illusion, because you have to basically make all the set rules almost, so you're kind of like setting the tone for everybody else.
And you like don't know what's going to happen. You haven't experienced like a single day of FT. You don't know what the morning's going to be like. You don't know this, you don't know that, and I just remember like talking to my peers afterwards, like them giving me feedback and saying, honestly, you didn't seem flustered at all when they were yelling at you. And like the truth is I was flustered. It's just that I kept my bearing because it's important that you don't show them that you're stressed out and flustered, because then they're just gonna feed on that because they know what stresses you out, so they're gonna just like put on the pressure more.
Thanks, FTP flight commanders, you did great with that.
Honestly, it prepared me a lot. I know how to get yelled at, so that's when I was getting yelled at, you keep a straight face, and even if you're freaking out, you don't know what to do, like sit there and think, keep your bearing, because if you show them that this is something that stresses you out, they're just gonna do it more. So I did well with that.
I think one thing for excelling at least was being adaptable, because like, you know, a lot changed, especially when we went through FDEs and stuff, but like I think we were taught very well, like through either I did the FTP twice, but like just being like flexible and being able to adapt, like not holding like, well, this is the set way we've done this, like we're going to keep doing it this way. But I also think COVID kind of taught me that at least, but like it definitely helped going in FT, having that flexibility and being able to adapt to how different people called things.
I agree. I think one of the things I excelled at, kind of along the line with what Cadet Rowley said, but one of the feedbacks I actually got from my flight was that I worked well under pressure. So I was very mission focused. That's how I always am. But I didn't actually lead any flights until, I don't think TD10 did I lead about anything other than like the LRCs and the required. I think I led a GLP. But other than that, during like going through the day, I didn't lead anything. So I was kind of able to observe the tone of FT. So going through that, I knew, being mission focused, like, okay, we need to get to this point. We're at A, we need to get B. In the middle, a lot of stuff is going to happen. But as long as we end up at B, we're going to be fine. So I would get yelled at, you miss, like, maybe miss a greeting, stuff like that. But as long as we get to the end, I was able to stay focused. And I think FTP did help out a lot with that, because you got to work well under that pressure. And of course, the pressure is going to be very, very different once you get to FT. Yeah. But I think that was something that, I think even being like a 300, you and me, Cadet Rally, going there, we had a little bit more time in ROTC. We kind of knew what was seen as important and whatnot. And I think that helped prepare me.
Like you said about it being a skill, like it's a skill to be able to like not forget your training.
Exactly.
When you're being yelled at.
Yes, there were so many times that you would just walk by another flight and they're asking a simple question like, "What's the next thing we're doing?" And the answer is like, left face, or go to the DFAC.
Or they do the wrong facing.
Exactly. And then everyone just completely blanks and forgets what you're doing. And that's not something you can do on active duty. So I think that's one of the aspects that I'm glad FT kind of incorporated. And I was glad I was able to perform to what I expected.
Yeah. Going off of that, Cadet Lemieux, I actually wrote down in my tiny little FTP notebook, like while I was on the plane, I think, when I'm there, remain calm and just tune in for direction and feedback. If the voices are not providing that, then tune them out. So,
That's good.
It's like about not forgetting like the mission, like you're saying, and just tuning out the things that are not important. It's just added pressure, and it's really not constructive at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things you'll get from the CTAs and even other flights. So our flights, again, going back to being the pirates, we had morale cannons and we go boom at other flights, completely to distract them. You don't need to listen to us booming, but like you said, that's really good advice, tuning out things that aren't helping you out, because your CTAs are gonna berate you and all these other things, and you can't ignore them, but you can
and really
not incorporate their whatever they're saying.
That's why.
Well, and really, that's what they want you to do, because if
Yeah.
they're not telling you to do something, they're just yelling at you, then they really kind of just want you to ignore them.
Well, if you think about it, we always had chants for every little thing. So there's always something going on behind you or around you. Someone's chanting, someone's yelling, someone. So you have to be able to like tune stuff out and be able to focus on what you need to do. Like that, Lemieux said.
Strive through the chaos a little
Yeah.
bit.
Definitely. And
Embrace
that even goes
the
for
chaos.
like things that aren't FT related. Like when you're briefing and somebody walks in the room, you're going to need to stay focused still so you don't like screw up your brief.
Or like lose your spot. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just knowing what you have to do to get it done, basically.
Yeah, the mission.
Yep. And what are some disadvantages of going through FT with COVID?
The split between your bay and your flight.
That was
so
terrible.
I
Let's
remember
describe this so that people know what we're talking about.
when I arrived at FT, I arrived at midnight because I wanted to have Chick-fil-A at the airport.
Of
And
course
I
you
took
did.
that little time to eat and then ended up on the next one. So I wasn't late or anything. It was only like 30 minutes after my flight. I just so happened to land right when the next bus was leaving.
Oh, okay.
So it was fine. So I ended up
That's a lot of
staying
viewers.
and talking to some other cadets. But I got there, looked in the room because you get in at night, and I was like, okay, I'm going to this bed. There must be 4 people in this bay. The lights turn on the next day. There's 20 people in there, and those 20 people are the ones you're with for the first 7 days, ROM, and that's where you complete your
Restriction of movement.
Yes. And that's what you have for your academics, and you would practice for FDEs, things like that during that time. But you don't interact with other flights just in case one of you would get COVID.
Yeah, and you have to wear a mask the whole time, like even outside.
Even outside.
Yeah.
It took them a minute.
During
though.
drill practice, that was rough.
Especially when it was like 100
90,
degrees and
yeah.
you're just sweating, and it's like, I had glasses on at that time too because
You can't
single
have
tier contacts, so like it just fogged, it got sweaty, fell, you name it. It was, and the masks made it so much worse. It just fogged it up.
Yeah.
That was
And
a
then-
challenge.
That
It
was my
was.
big challenge.
And then after those 7 days of ROM T8, you would start to go through flight. A completely, sometimes like in Cadet Western's case, not a completely different group of people, but at least half of that group of people would be people you now have to incorporate into a flight and immediately start performing in mission scenarios, which granted is an evaluation of your ability to adapt as a leader, but that's not how necessarily were done at Maxwell. From my understanding back at Maxwell, you'd have a bay of a smaller number of people,
Like
and then you would
2.
have 2 people or so, and you had less time to change and whatnot and less time to clean, but with those people it just worked. I never went to Maxwell, I can't speak to it, but they would be with the same flight the whole time, so then you're
Right.
with that
They
whole group.
would,
You don't
I
have to
think.
split yourself up, you don't have different expectations from not only cadets but also the FTOs, and I know you guys have some experience with the change of expectations
Yeah.
of FTOs
Well,
between your bay and your flights.
I had the same FTO. And
Oh,
both
okay.
of them were the same from ROM to my flight. So I knew the expectations, but I could see the struggle, especially because other people from other bays had a lot lenient and easier standards, I guess. And I'm trying to find the word
that's
for
the
it.
easiest way to put it.
Yeah. So when they came and had them, like I knew what they were looking for already, and I knew how to act, but it really caught them off guard, which
Wait, did you say you had the same?
I did. I had the same FTO, so that's why it made it a lot. Yeah.
I went from
If that makes sense
So
now.
jealous.
No, you're not. I would have preferred.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it just depends. Like, I would have preferred to have my bay FTOs.
I would have loved
I
to
would've
change.
too.
I would have
But
loved to change.
yeah. So my experience with it is I really didn't like that part. I really liked the concept. I think it was like a good test of your leadership skills to be able to see like if you can make those connections quickly again and perform well again. It's kind of like another like jump into the water, like mix things up right in the middle,
I can kind of see.
right before things get difficult.
Yeah, I can kind of see
Yeah.
both ways though. How it's like it's testing your leadership again, but like it's almost like kind of making almost everything more chaos, like organized chaos. Like, yeah, you have other flights and stuff, but then it made everything so much more difficult for later on in the evening because you'd still end up being with your bays and then you're with your flights still, and you're like, well, like, which one am I working with now? Like, it's kind of like you have to adapt to each one.
And then
you're like, what?
you get to talk with your bay, and they're like, oh, this is what we did today. You wouldn't get into specifics because you wouldn't say, like, oh, this mission scenario, or there's a turtle on the left. You wouldn't get that specific, but you'd be, oh, my flight, this is how our FTOs are. My flight, this is how our FTOs.
Yeah.
So then you kind of learned about the...
Well, because we did FDEs right when we got into our flights. Like, that was our first thing we were practicing. And every FTO said something different. Because the FTOs would practice with the drill with the bays every day.
Yeah.
And then when we would get to our flights to practice with our flights, because that's who we would do our FDEs with, it would be like, well, my FTO said this, FTO said this.
Yeah.
So that was another thing that I thought was difficult, was knowing the actual drill and ceremonies manual. Like, that proved to be something that
we don't
was a problem.
No, even when I got to the drill pad, we had to do eyes right. For some reason, this changed every time somebody went up onto the drill pad. So they're like, well, first you have to have the guidon goes down, and then they turn their head. No, their head is straight. No, you have to walk forward after this. Oh, you have to be in mark time as you go. And I'm like, can y'all just make up your mind? Like, we got told so many different things, and then at one point, like, one of the drill pad people were like, y'all keep doing this wrong. What's going on? I'm like, sir, we've been told 5 things in the span of 10 minutes. What is it? And then, even then, we never got a direct answer, and we're like, thank you. Thank you, sir.
And I think COVID kind of played into that with swapping leadership and the distance, not only between physical distance, but the communication distance between different FTOs. That was a struggle.
Well, and that was sort of just a consequence of how we had to do things, because it was literally called restriction of movement. We weren't supposed to interact with the other flights.
No.
And that just made it really difficult for the FTOs, because they were all just, telling cadets like what they thought, just doing like their best, but it's not like they had something that they were going off of. They just weren't provided that. But I'll go into more about what I like about it with our next question. But the thing that I found so difficult was just being evaluated by different people.
Yes.
So like the first 7 days I did really well, and I really clicked with my Bay FTOs, and I excelled. And I think it was because I wasn't worried about being yelled at. I think I was just there to help people. I knew what was important. I was there to help people and help my team. And then when I got to my flights, I had that same mentality, and I think everyone else felt more comfortable too, and they had a similar mentality. But then just being with a new FTO and having them evaluate us, and just the difference between the FTOs, and then also the fact that in the second half it was so fast paced, so I think it was difficult for the FTOs to really get to know us.
That's where everything happens.
And with that's where most of the major evaluations are, and it's so fast paced, the FTOs don't really have the chance to get to know us, and then they have to evaluate us, and then also it doesn't help us if we feel like they aren't getting to know us, because then that probably makes us feel not as comfortable, not as supported. I know that's how I felt personally.
Well, so having the same, because y'all's obviously your situation was different. I had the same FTOs the whole time, so they already knew the 4 girls from my bay, and they were introduced to a whole bunch of new guys. So they didn't have to evaluate us as much because they already knew us, and they didn't have to do it. But it still was just difficult because just the setting in general was completely different. Because I felt at least from my one FTO, expectations changed, which kind of sucked, because then it's well, you've been doing it this way the first 7 days I had you, and all of a sudden you're well, this is different.
Yeah, you have an interesting perspective on that.
So we had different expectations at that point, and we're that wasn't how you said it earlier. Why did you change this? It didn't make sense to us, especially for us girls who had her, and we're we just were so confused, and we go back to our bay and we're like, has that ever been like a thing for us before? And they're like, no. And I'm like, just making sure. So it was just really weird to deal with it.
That is odd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that the difference in evaluations was a struggle with COVID, and you can't get over the fact that they say don't stress about, say, your rankings or your evaluations. Don't stress about, just do your best. But you can't completely eliminate that. You're at field training,
Yeah.
you're evaluated. You're gonna be stressed on how you do.
That is the thing that matters most. But I think how you do the best is by not worrying about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
So you try, at least for my experience, I try my best to not worry about any, just get integrated with my flight. And I think I did well for that in my bay. And then you go to your flight, and then everything is happening, all of your evaluations are happening. So you could be a superstar in your bay, right? The only evaluations you have are academics. And then you get into your flight, and everything else happens. So maybe you just had a bad couple days, and then you get stressed out like, well, they didn't see me
Yeah.
for
They didn't see you at your
50% of
best.
FT.
And even
So-
some of the, right, so then they don't really know, like, what you were thinking. They can't really like give you any credit for that. And then also some of the scenarios were just curveballs.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
That's what sucked, too. But now that we've kind of gone over some disadvantages, what are some advantages of going through FT?
with
With
COVID.
COVID.
So
With
I can
COVID.
start off because it really is going off of this, what we were talking about with the disadvantages. I did actually really like how it was set up. I liked like having the first 7 days where you do like you really focus on like getting DFAC procedures down, you get all your academics out of the way, you get pretty much all of your drill practice out of the way with the exception of the FDE, you get like, I mean, you even get all of your PT done. Like, you don't even PT in the last 9 days because you're just doing mission scenarios. And then you do your FA.
I don't know about y'all. I still kind of did some PT.
We stretched our
Can't
wrists.
relate.
So before
We did a couple,
before,
like, PT things, but it was, like, way more lax because you already have
Yep.
your FA done.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
ours we took our FA a little later, so they said you're doing a PT now and you have to not do that much exercise because you're doing your FA tomorrow.
Right.
So we stretched our wrists, and that was the thing they said you better do 100
That
push-ups
was my
because your
favorite
wrists are
PT.
stressed. So, but yeah, I think, I mean, you can find positives in those. I personally disliked most of the aspects you talked about.
Well, I just liked, like, separating that because, like, what we've been saying, the LRC and then the LRC stands for Leadership Reaction Course. And then, like, these mission scenarios, and then, I don't know, maybe there's a few other things that we had evaluations over the last days. Like, those were the most, like, weighted things in our evaluations, and it was really nice to just, like, not have to focus on any of the, the academics and other stuff. And then also, like I said earlier, it was a test to, like, how easily you can connect with the people around you. And that's, like, what's most important about, I think, being in the Air Force and succeeding in life is being able to collaborate with people and build off of other people. And because, like, no one succeeds alone. So I think, like, it kind of shows you, you know, if you're not able to connect with someone, like, connect with people easily, then that's something that you're going to have to work on.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, replicating that, like you said, working with team environment in two separate 7-day periods, I think it was where I felt that FT kind of lacked on. But yeah, I agree. Like, getting with a new group of people and storming them is super important for active duty. I just think it maybe could have been done a little better in those 7 days.
Especially the last 9 days, I think.
Yep.
It's like a kind of a love-hate kind of scheduling, because, like, I love certain aspects, like, kind of like what Cadet Rally said, like, the divide between academics, PT, and then all the scenarios, the LRCs, which I kind of like that, but then obviously the difference between, like, integration of flights, the FTO differences, different expectation standards.
Like, if they were going to be doing that, and honestly, I think it's worth continuing.
Oh, I agree.
Like, even when you don't have to do restriction of movement, I think it's worth setting up something where it's just, like, all standardized, and then also, like, just not making every, like, the last 9 days or whatever so intensive, because that was a huge issue for me. It was definitely an obstacle for me, was just not feeling connected to my FGOs and not, like, feeling like they knew who I was. And like you said, they don't really get to, like, know you, and it's kind of like causes issues with your evaluations because they don't really know what you're thinking.
What were you saying you wish they continue?
Like the
setup.
separation, the structure,
Schedule.
like having
not necessarily
academics.
separating your flights, but maybe separating academics.
The ROM,
versus-
and then like how ROM was set up, so it was like all academic and PT.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
then it was,
even
like,
if they want to keep
overseas.
the flights the same and not change flights, like
I
I really
don't think
liked
you
the
should change
separation of the
I agree.
events, just because it really helped you like prioritize what you needed to focus on and what you needed to like prepare mentally for.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some lessons that you learned while at FT?
So many.
Everybody's experiences are going to be different.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, when people came back from FT from, like, years past, they all said very similar things. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, it is the best time. Like, granted, I had, like, some good memories, and they're like, never forget, but, like, you'll never forget some of these moments. And I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm not, like, it just didn't have this, like, glorious experience that everybody else was talking about. Like, yeah, this one was hard, but I just didn't,
Yeah, but it wasn't Maxwell.
Yeah.
It wasn't this magical thing people were making it out to be, so I was like, okay. So that was always a great time coming back. And they're like, why was yours so different? I'm like, FTO
Yeah.
dependent.
I guess that's true. I journaled like pretty much every day since TD2 on, and I think like my first like couple journals are like, I hate this so much. They say the first couple of days are the worst. I hope that's true. And then I think like TD6, 7, 8, I'm like, I am in much higher spirits. I don't like it. Like, I don't enjoy my experience.
Was it because you're
like,
getting closer to the end,
ever.
though?
Well, I wouldn't even say that, because like that was just before going into the execution period where you have to do all your scenarios. So that was honestly one of the more nerve-wracking parts of FT, like where you're about to go into something like that, going into another unknown.
Yeah.
But I was like saying, I don't necessarily enjoy my time here. Like, I've heard people who've gone to FT in the past say, so I don't know. And then like my last couple of days, I end up like saying, I have really enjoyed this experience, and I did end up having fun in the end.
Yeah. I think a lesson I learned at FT, and it's supposed to be a leadership evaluation, right? But I learned, and you hear this from so many people, that I learned way more about myself as a follower than as a leader, because you hear all the phrases like mission first, people always, things like that.
Yeah.
And I think I saw that represented at FT way better than any other AFROT experience could have given to me.
Agreed.
Because I would be working with a team, and let's say right now we're POC and you might be in leadership of GMC, and you have that level of separation, right? Because you have the different upperclassmen. At FT, it's way more, I think, at least from what I can perceive, representative of how on active duty the leaders are an integral part of the team, right? In order to even think about beginning to lead people, you need to be so integrated into that team framework. And that's what I kind of learned about myself, was I needed to integrate myself way more into my team, become a part of them, get to know how they think and how they see and all of their perspective and actions in a situation. And only then can I begin to start leading them and influencing them to get the mission done in the way I see fit. And obviously you're not going to be able to immediately integrate yourself getting to know people and everything, but just at least that on the tactical level, integrating yourself into part of the team and becoming a follower and a resource. And they always say becoming a servant to your people, right?
Yeah.
Those type of phrases just really stood out in
servant leadership.
Yeah, into they came to life at FT, and I learned how I fit into those roles, how I can put the mission first with people always, how I can be a servant to my followers and things like that.
Right.
All those phrases that you hear over and over again in AS class actually got represented.
I think another thing I learned is don't take everything to heart, because I know certain, you're going to get feedback, you're going to be yelled at, you just can't take everything personally, because sometimes, I had a girl on my flight, she was told she was the 20th out of 20, she was the last person in our flight. She took it very to heart, when it's just a rank and it's just a number, you can improve from this. It was that 7th-day ROM, and about before we were going to go to flights, you had time, but she took it to heart, and it just became this whole thing, and I'm like, they don't mean to hurt you. Like, this is just stuff to help you and help you grow and become a better person, become a better leader for the Air Force, and just be a better person overall.
Yeah, I definitely became aware of my sensitivities while I'm there, which like it's like, oh, I don't care what anyone says about me. It's like, no, like people can say things, and you know what, it can hurt sometimes. All you have to do is be able to internalize that and be like, okay, what does it really mean? Like you said, I got ranked 20th. What does that mean? It means that these are the things I could work on, which midterm feedback like that is important.
I agree with you guys there. I know that Cadet Griffin has said this before, and I've actually never forgotten it. One of our cadre asked, why is it not important for you to know your rank? And Cadet Griffin raised her hand and said, because your rank shouldn't affect how you perform. And I think that's really true. I think you should be doing your best all the time. But if you do get the opportunity to see where you're ranked amongst your peers, you can just use that as sort of a lesson to say, okay, this is where I'm at, and interpret it in the sense that, okay, I need to do better in these areas instead of being like, oh, I'm last, or oh, I'm first.
Yeah, because then, if you're ranked last, you don't, because you're going to be you're going to kind of throw yourself that pity party. Like, why can't I do this? Why am I at this?
Or I don't deserve this.
Yeah, you're or you think you're too good for that, or you're just going to keep kind of mulling it over, and it's not going to get you anywhere unless you try to find the cause of that problem. All right, why would I think this is happening? Or get that feedback and say, okay, well, how can I change that about myself? Or how can I work on that? But
And then I was going to kind of go off of what Cadet Lemieux said. A lesson that I think I learned and I've really, really internalized since being at FT is the whole how important it is to be a follower, and how important it is to really show your people how much you care about them. So, to be a good leader and be integrated into the team, like you were saying, Cadet Lemieux, I think it is really important to start with being the best follower you can be, and just trying to do everything for your team that you can, and everything that you do, it's not about how you're going to succeed from it or how it's going to make you look better or help you. It's more about how it's going to help your team, and honestly, that's what's going to make you look good.
Yep.
That was just the most important thing to make your team succeed, was just being a active follower and not thinking about how you looked as a follower, even just only considering how your actions affect your team. But then that kind of goes into how are you as a leader. It was just so obvious when your leader didn't care about you, didn't care about your people. And that, I think, is the greatest lesson I learned, was how detrimental that is.
Oh, it literally is. We had one of the cadets in my bay become flight commander, and she literally said, I want to make this time hack. You guys are going to make me late. She didn't care that. And the one girl at that point had something wrong with her knee. She couldn't move that fast. And she's like, I want to make this time hack. You guys are slowing me down. We got to go. You guys are going to make me look bad. And blah, blah, blah. And I'll never forget that, because I'm like, it's not about you in this. This is helping her team. She can't go that fast. If you want her to hurt herself even more, you're going to.
Yeah, and I even remember during some GLP debriefs, the leader being asked to stand up and debrief the mission, and some of them just being like, I feel that I did well because I did this, blah, blah, blah. It's that doesn't help anybody. All I hear is I, and it's really not about that at all.
Yeah, there was times, I would say, that happening, and it's almost... It was kind of the opposite, where they said, wow, the team did great, good job, pat yourself, and you could tell it was a facade, and they were actually being they were trying to double up on that game, where it's I'm going to make
they
my
know
team
what
look
they're
good.
looking for.
They know what they're looking for at that point.
You could tell them.
I agree.
And then, you really can tell the difference when it's genuine, because your team succeeds so much more when you're a leader who is just worried about, your people. Are they doing well? Are they capable of completing the mission? If not, what tools can you give them? And I think that that's something I'm really going to take into this semester as being a flight commander for 100s and 200s, is really just trying to make my cadets, like, feel like I care about them and that it's important to me that they succeed, because it is important to me that they succeed.
Yeah. You want everybody to succeed. If you don't, then you're just only looking out for yourself, but you can't do that. You gotta look out for your team, too.
Yeah, the only time we started...
that's really not what the Air Force is about.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. I would say the only time we started to perform at FT was when we started genuinely caring about each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm going to try and replicate with my, like, supos and stuff. I'm going to be like, I actually care about your guys' time. Like, when I was at GMC, that was... Like, for me, I was like, oh, I just have too much time, so that's what I'm trying to give them a lot. So little things like that, I think we can carry into our jobs.
Yeah, kind of how you reflect your, like, visions and how you tell, like, your expectations, like, sets the tone and the mood for your team.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if you're there to help them out, like, hey, if you need help, if you need me to, like, help you out with doing this thing, or need an extra hand, like, I'll help you. But if you don't do that, then you're going to watch your whole team struggle and fail, and that ends up coming back on you.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what all the field training was all about, and really ROTC in general, is just taking what we learn, because, you know, you're not going to be in the same scenario again ever, probably, but it's not about that scenario. It's about what you learn from it and how you can apply it in the future.
Yeah. And then...
Last question!
Woo! Would y'all do it again?
So, me, would I do field training again? Yes. Would I like to return to Shelby? Maybe. I would kind of like to get that Maxwell experience, you know, that a little bit of their dining food. But no, unironically, if I had to do field training again, I think I would, just for the sake of, like, what I learned about myself. Obviously, I've gone through that experience once, so going through the exact same thing would be a little different. So that's why I think if I could go to Maxwell or something like that and see something new and still gain a benefit, because I don't think I would learn any more about myself going through the exact same training schedule. I would say this is a repeat, obviously, but if I could go somewhere like Maxwell and do something very similar, or field training 2, where it's like, these are now TD19 is what TD1
It's not like I would do the exact same thing over again.
But would you do field training? Yes.
Would I do, like, another, like, continuation of it? Yeah, I totally would. I wrote this on TD16. I know I keep reading from my journal, but last time. I would honestly do it again if it meant I could have more time with the people I've met here in Mississippi. But my one condition would be that it would have to be the same people, because that's why I enjoyed it so much.
I would love to go back with the Pirates again. Oh, going with the Pirates to Maxwell, that would be something else. I would love to do that.
See, if I had to go through...
I miss the ladies in my base.
I miss, like, the ones that I was really close with, I miss them. Obviously, there's some of the outliers, you know, you just couldn't get along with, because they kind of were there doing their own thing, didn't care much about other people. But I'd go back and do it again, because, like I said, just meeting the people and being with them, like, the bond, you're never going to lose that. Like, you could probably text someone random from your bay, like, be like, hey, how's it going? They would respond. It just... the camaraderie that gets built during it.
Yeah, if I could go back and keep kicking it with those ladies, I 100% would.
Yeah. All right.
I was kind of sad to come back. Okay, so we kind of want to share our favorite memories, so we'll do our joint memory.
Okay, yeah.
Do you have a favorite memory?
I do.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
So there was this group of girls of us, so we were, it was like, I forget what we were exactly doing, but our door was shut, so we were sitting for a second, like, on the floor, and it just became this, like, kind of ball of us. So, like, somebody was sitting on, like, and I was sitting in front of them, and then it was just, like, we were just in this big intertwined, basically, sitting circle, and then we hear a knock on the door, because, you know, that door was shut for a little bit, and all you see is us trying to scramble, but since we're all intertwined, everyone's falling over each other, because we have to get our toes on the line right in front of our beds, so none of us are close to our bed, so we're freaking out, like, trying to get off from over each other, but we're, like, we couldn't get up. So we're all panicking, we're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be, like, getting yelled at. It sucked, but it was so funny, because then we're standing on the line, and they're like, why did it take so long? We're like,
oh, so it was your FTOs there?
Yeah, well, because we had to open the door, they're like, why isn't the door open? Because we, like, you know, we were changing and stuff, but we were just sitting for a second, obviously, you know, the time when you sit for a second. And So that's just when we were all intertwined and didn't work to get up because we were just in this ball. So it was just definitely funny because then they're like, that took you guys a minute. Why'd it take so long? We're like, not because we were just sitting like in a crisscross and like, pretzel kind of thing.
We got locked into our bay one night. The door.
How?
The door. I don't know. Something wrong with the door.
Oh, yeah, we did that. On the outside door, we locked ourselves in one time.
No, it was the inside door.
The inside door?
And it was night,
no
and
idea how you
like
did
someone wanted to go to the bathroom, and they're like, I can't open the door. And we're all like, just try really hard.
You're not pressing hard enough.
So like we all got up and we're trying to like open the door. So then we just start banging on the door, and eventually some ladies like went out to the outside door and went and got our FTOs, and they literally like had to. I don't know how they were able to pull it open, but they ended up like removing like some type of like, I don't know, like
some part of the door.
Oh my gosh.
Like the closing part. But they said that actually happened the first shell. So
why didn't they think to like?
I don't know. Okay, but moving on. Another funny memory was this was like after we started execution, so we were all super excited to get back to our bays, and I heard that one of the girls like in the very back was a flight commander that day, so I wanted to go ask her about it. And our CTA like walked in really fast, and they didn't really like say, they didn't call the room to attention very clearly, so I didn't really hear them. And so I was like still just talking to her, and then he was just like, hey, what are you guys doing? Why aren't you on attention? So I just went to attention. I was just like, sir, we're on attention because I didn't hear them call the room. He was just like, why? And I said, sir, because I was talking. And he was just like, why? And I said, sir, because I was talking to Ket Pal. And he was just like, why? And I was just like, sir, I heard that she was flight commander today. I want to ask her how it was. And he was just like, why? And then I couldn't figure out an answer. He was just like, never mind. And then like a bunch of girls in the front of the room started laughing, and they all got 341s.
Oh my god.
Oh no, there's this really funny thing. I think y'all are going to kick out of this real quick. So we were just chilling in our bay, like literally we're sitting and just doing nothing. And our CTA comes to the front of the room. This man, we'll leave a name out just for the sole purpose of it. He goes, so we call the room because he's like right by that line. And he goes, ladies, holding cranberry juice like on the top and on the bottom. He's like, I have got you cranberry juice. Write an MFR to earn it. Walks away. We never asked for any cranberry juice. We never like said anything about it. And we were like, huh? Like,
yeah, that's weird.
It was the weirdest experience because we're like, we didn't
ask.
We never asked. We never like said we wanted like any of this, and we're just like, and then so when he came around, eventually filled the cup. It was just those little squincher cups. So it was like this full, and we're like, and we're just trying not to laugh because it's just like
a tiny bit of good.
Oh, it was so weird.
So super quick, I was at the front of the door, so I always had to call the room to attention, and lots of stories involving not only field training in general, but that specifically. But more than once, I would call the room, and my voice would crack pretty bad. So I'd be like, room tension, and whatever FTO it was would walk in, stop and freeze for half a second, look at me, and then look forward and keep going, and that was great. And then, kind of along the same line, was when we were signing that flag I was talking about earlier, our duress word, because we came up with that, was pineapple. Well, Major WB, he let us call him that at the end, Major Wilkerson being name, bolted into the room. So they hit the flag real quick, and then I started screaming pineapple. And everyone started screaming, pineapple, pineapple. And we screamed that for about 4.5 minutes. And he was just looking around like, what is going on? I could see the look on his face as soon as I started screaming it, and he didn't know what was going on until he turned around and saw we had taken the flag down, and then a look of slight confusion and a little bit of anger came out of his face, like, what did they do? So we were just sitting there screaming pineapple, which just added to the great part of the situation.
I love it.
Yeah, but then Cadet Rally, do you want me to start on?
Yeah.
So I never taught Cadet Rally while I was at field training, except for one instance until graduation.
There was like a few times.
There was a couple times, but the first time I interacted with you there, I had been marching my bay, and they wanted to march the long way back from the BFAC because they were doing Jody's, and then they messed up their Jody's. I stopped at the wrong bay, was a little bit flustered, and as flight commander, of course, it's my fault, but my flight was making wacky suggestions the whole time, so that kind of added on to it. Finally got to the right bay. I stopped the flight and about to go in. From the corner of my right ear, I hear, "Good evening, Cadet Lemieux."
And I was really far away, so I yelled it.
Cadet Rally yelled it, and I instantly knew who it was. And I kind of went in shock because my FT brain went, wait a minute, this is reality. There's someone from outside of Shelby here. And then my entire bay just went, ooh, and I had to explain to my major that you were my girlfriend, but that we studied in aerospace together, and it became a whole thing that I got called out. So the rest of my time, my bay, anytime we saw a flight of ladies, we would say "Ahoy, ladies," in hopes that Cadet Raleigh was in there, and she never was. So it was just an embarrassment every time.
Okay.
And then it got to the point where I knew if I didn't go along with the joke that I would just keep getting made fun of. So I just went along with it, and people were... but it got to the point where some of the cadets in my bay would go, "Major Wilkerson Beanon, can I go study with Cadet Lemieux?" And long story short, we couldn't do any more statements or questions that day. So that's how that evolved, and that was a great comedic relief for that. And Cadet Raleigh has a bit of a different perspective.
Well, yeah, well, I didn't really have the same experience, but when I did yell that out at your flight, then we went up the stairs, and then our FTO came into our room and was like, "Cadet Rally, you can't interact with the other flight. You'll get to talk to the people you know at graduation." So I was kind of reprimanded for
yelling at you guys, and you guys just got made fun of.
I got.
Wow.
It was later it was TD. It was after we had started flight. So
yeah, I was in good spirits.
Yeah. I think that was worth it for me, and I couldn't find you the rest of the time there. And my bay was on the lookout for you. I had 20 other operatives, or 19 other operatives.
God.
I guess 20 if you count CTA Gibson, looking for Cadet Rowley to try and get back at her, and we never found you. She evaded everything.
That would have been so funny. No, that reminded me. So, did you guys watch Ender's Game at all?
I've seen it, yeah.
Okay.
I actually read the book.
At field training?
Yeah, we did. We watched it at field training.
Oh,
yeah, we watched it at field training.
We didn't watch anything.
Yeah,
we watched the Band of Brothers.
We watched...
The whole thing?
Not one episode.
Yeah, no, we watched Ender's Game, but... So you know how there's she'll grab his hand or something small acts of affection. Right?
Yeah, sure. So that's been a while.
Yeah, so there's small acts of affection, hand holding, touching the shoulder, some type of flirtatious remark. And we had our auditorium of what was that, 200 people per shell. All you hear is "shee." The whole auditorium is going "shee, shee." I'm like, God, I hate this.
You guys
Can't give
that
us all
together.
Form 17.
What movie did we watch?
We watched Pitzenbarger, which was the final... it was the story about Pitzenbarger.
The Last Full Measure.
The Last Full Measure was about a Medal of Honor enlisted Air Force recipient. He was a pararescue man. It was actually a really good story, and one of the guys in my bay was a 32-year-old film enthusiast. He went to film school and ended up working for a telecommunications company for a while, and he wanted to be PAO. And we asked his opinion on it. He said it was a great movie, great story, great actors, just not that great execution. So, and that sums it up pretty well.
Yeah, and it was just really hard to hear and hard to see.
I was about 6
floor,
feet in front of the TV, so I had a great experience.
Yes.
I went to the bathroom and came in last, so I had a front row seat.
Yeah, see, all I hear, I thought it was going to be ooh. No, it was "she" the whole time. I'm just
funny.
I sat there and I turned to one of my baymates. I'm like, did I just miss something? And she's like, and she's the one who's in JAG, so she's 24 now, 25. She's like, I'm too old for this generation.
No.
Okay, so I better tell this story because I'm going to send this to my baymates and they'd be mad if I didn't say it. So every single night we had a change of numbers ceremony, and basically towards the beginning of the encampment we had one girl was writing numbers just 1, 2, 3, like how many days we had left, and we put like days until graduation. We just like would tape on a new number every night.
Yeah.
And then there was one girl in my bay who could play, or I don't understand. I mean, I don't even know how to say it. She could like make music on her throat by like
when they go like this thing.
by like flicking her throat and like changing the way her mouth was.
It's like some
shaped.
weird type of beatboxing.
Yeah, so she could do that. So we would like all get at the front of the room and we would just like stand at attention, and then one of the cadets would be like sound reveille, and then she would start playing like reveille on her throat, and we would all just stand at attention or parade rest or something, and then we would go to attention, and then we would present arms to the numbers, and then we had one cadet who would like run up and smack the number on the wall. It was like above the door, so it was like kind of difficult to get it up there. She wasn't very accurate sometimes.
Yeah.
But she would like scream, and we were like kind of, they didn't really want us to do that at first, but then our floor squadron commander, so it was like our lieutenant colonel, he said that he liked that part about it, and it was our CTA who was telling us we couldn't make loud noises, but our lieutenant colonel said that he did like it, so that arranged it. But
I love that.
But yeah, that was really funny, and we all got a kick out of that. It was really fun.
I love it.
Okay, well, thank you, Cadet Lemieux, for coming on to Aircast today to discuss field training. If you guys have any questions about what we've talked about today, please reach out. I know that we would all be happy to continue the conversation.
Okay, Aircats, remember to fly, fight, and win. I'll catch you next time on Aircasts. We're out.